Okay. Uh-oh. Oh, someone's got a musket. Or is it a sword?
It's a sword.
Oh, show me your sword skills there, buddy.
Okay.
Alright.
I don't know.
Alright, well, no one... Whoa! I don't want to mess with you. Alright, there you go, buddy.
Oh my god.
Film me now. Hi, everybody. Good morning. So today is the last day of the fighting ground. I'm going to find out the conclusion. And that should be really exciting. I'm going to find out. And we're also going to find out the lesson. Like, what's the lesson of the story? And that's called the theme. We're not going to do too much work with the theme. Later on, you're going to have a lot of work with that. This is just a little introduction. A theme is a lesson of the story. What lesson could you have learned from the story? And I'll take any lesson and then tell me why. Prove it. And then the rest is discussion director. You have to do all of it. So this will be for an assessment. So be ready for that. This is a discussion director sheet. Do your best. You'll have 4 kind of questions to ask. You'll be fine. We've done these. The setting, character, the lesson. Okay, and I think your favorite part or some kind of like that. All right, so let's get on to the fighting ground, shall we? Let's see what happens. Nice sword spinning there, buddy.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, we filmed it with the closet open. Gotta clean this closet up here. What are we doing? Well, all right. Here we go. Scoot in.
"6:10. Jonathan stared out. The morning had turned milk white. The 3 Hessians were upon the ground, their bodies twisted, their torn uniforms filthy with earth and blood. The corporal and the other men gathered around in a semicircle, gazing at the dead. Jonathan watched the Americans turn and, guns in their hands or on their shoulders, start to walk slowly back across the field. As he watched, they grew faint, shrouded in the rising morning mist. No one looked back, or spoke, or paused. They just left. "6:13. Only the corporal remained. He kept looking at the fallen men. Slowly, he bent down and gently closed their eyes. Then he gathered up their guns. When he stood, he became aware that Jonathan had come from the house and was close by. They looked at one another. "You tried to save them, didn't you?" said the corporal. "Yes." "They would have killed you." "They didn't." The corporal looked beyond Jonathan to the house, then to the line of retreating men, then to the rising sun. He seemed to speak to the air. "They killed one of ours yesterday, and you don't know how many others before. At Long Island, they bayoneted the wounded. They were soldiers. So am I, so are you. You were lucky, that's all. There's nothing more to it." Jonathan stared at him. The corporal attempted to return the look. Suddenly, he turned away and said, "Go get your gun. It doesn't belong to you. It needs returning." Heavily, Jonathan turned and went back inside the house. It took time for him to find his gun, buried as it was beneath the rubble of the room. Slowly, he pulled it clear and grasped it in his hands. He looked down at it. Then, Lifting it, holding it by the barrel, he swung it over his head. With the surging strength of his exploding rage, he brought it down against the stone hearth. The shock shot through his bones. The gun almost fell from his grasp, but now his rage had seized him completely, pouring through him. Gripping the gun even tighter, he began pounding it against the stones again and again and again. The gun stock splintered. The metal bent and burst. Pieces flew in all directions. He fell to his knees, sobbing. Jonathan felt a hand tighten on his shoulder. "Come," said the corporal. "It's time to go." "6:40. They walked in silence. Even when they caught up with the other men, no one spoke. Jonathan stayed in the rear. No one walked close to him or spoke to him. He wasn't bothered. It was better that way. All he wanted to do was move. When they reached the camp, a wounded man who had remained there asked what had happened. "They tried to get away," said one of the men. "Tried to fight when we offered surrender. Fools." Jonathan looked about for the boy and the Frenchman, only to remember that they had long gone. The men gathered up their things and headed north, leaving the camp behind. As they walked, they moved in small groups of 2s and 3s. Jonathan went alone. At one point, the corporal came and attempted to march by his side. Instantly, Jonathan stopped. The corporal stopped too. "Leave me alone," said Jonathan. The corporal, momentarily flustered, started to say something, stopped, and walked away. And it was only then that Jonathan wondered what had happened to his horse. But after that, Jonathan was left to himself. 9:30. By the time Jonathan reached the tavern, only 4 of the men remained. The rest had slipped away. When Jonathan realized where they'd come to, he stopped. Automatically, he looked for the corporal, but the corporal too had gone. The tavern keeper, grinning broadly, ran out to meet them, shaking hands all around. "Beat them, did you?" he cried. "A famous victory, gentlemen! A drink to celebrate our victory!" Only one of the men accepted. After a few moments, the tavern keeper realized that Jonathan was there. "Ah, you," he said. "Your father came a-looking for you. Had permission, did you? You're sly boots, you are. He would have gone right after you if he wasn't dragging that leg of his, and him sick with your going. You'll be wanting to go home right quick, you will." Jonathan said nothing and started to move. Then the innkeeper remembered. "Hey," he called, "where's my gun?" Jonathan stopped and turned. "It's gone." "Gone? What happened to it? You gave me your word, boy." Jonathan, not wanting to explain, simply walked away. "The honor of your word," cried the tavern keeper after him. "I'll be after your pa." "10:30. Jonathan reached home. When he stepped into the clearing before their house, no one was about. The only thing moving was smoke rising from the chimney. For a moment he studied the doorway, preparing himself to go in. But as he stood there, a vague, soft, chopping sound came. He listened. It was the sound of a hoe striking against the earth. It was as if a clock had begun to tick again. Turning, Jonathan walked to the field, moving amidst the trees, his steps keeping pace with the sound. It filled him, pushing away the pain. Briefly he stopped, feeling as though he was seeing a mirage. It was himself he seemed to see. Himself as he had been the day before, rushing headlong from the field. He moved on, slower now, stepping from the woods to the edge of the field. There was his father working the ground. Jonathan watched him silently, watching the slow, limping shuffle and stride of the weakened leg. Something made his father stop and look around, until his eyes rested on Jonathan. For a moment, the two merely looked at one another, as if each needed to be sure the other was truly there. Then, like a flame rekindled, Jonathan saw the fear in his father's eyes. "Were you hurt?" his father stammered. Jonathan, unable to talk, shook his head. "No." His father let out a long breath. "Praise God," he said. "I am glad, so glad, boy." And he smiled. And there, then, at last, Jonathan understood that his father's fear had not been for himself. No, it was for Jonathan, that he might be spared. And suddenly, Jonathan understood more. Understood the most important thing, that he had indeed been spared. Oh, how glad he was to be there. And alive. Oh, alive.
All right, so, Connor, what do you think the lesson was of that book?
Well, I think the lesson about that book is, like, listen to your mother and father.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, Jonathan could have easily got hurt because it was his first time, you know, and he was, like, the only one, like, out there when he was, like, 13. And he could have got shot, but I think one of the main lessons about the book is listen to your mother and father.
Yeah, that can be a lesson, so that's an option too. What do you think about war? Is there any lessons about war?
I really think that, like...
Is war like that awesome adventure that Jonathan thought?
No, because, like, the main goal is, like, win and kill. But, like, if you think about it, you don't want to do that, but...
Okay, there's another one. So those are two possible lessons, guys. Good job, Connor.
Thanks.
All right, and thank you for listening to Abby and the Fighting Ground. We'll do some more work on it next week, too. All right, bye, guys.